A-E-1 source.
I'm Jake Zacharia. I'm a studio owner, sound designer, producer, technician. It's great to know that, like, when you go into work, there's people who love doing what they do as much as you do. What I really love about sound design and kind of getting into that after music is that you're using a lot of the same tools in a very different way. I just dragged a drumstick across the piano keys to create, like, a little percussive sound. They kind of, like, music and sound design almost feel like they're two sides of the same coin in a way. Man, you can find me at the studio for sure. I'm there 7 days a week. And this is At Some Time, Somewhere for AT1 Radio. Just how the studio got started, where we kind of came from. I was graduating from NYU music technology at the time, and I was in the middle of a bunch of projects. And, if you go to any kind of school where you have access to facilities, you know what it is. When you graduate, you just don't really have access to those facilities anymore. So I was working on a few records at the time, and I just needed a place to work and didn't want to just have to rely on the kindness of a studio job to let me work after hours and stuff. So I opened up a little project studio, about 110 square feet, with a couple of guys from the program. And we weren't really, like, taking clients or anything at that time. It was really just for, like, personal stuff that we were working on, just, like, getting into the industry. I think, like, one of the only clients I had there was a Lil Tracy session that went completely, off the rails. And I learned a lot that day. It was crazy. The mic was backwards. So fun one, really fun one. And then it was I think 2018, and some real estate stuff happened where, like, the company that we were leasing from got kicked out of the building. So we also, by proxy, got kicked out of the building, which was cool. And they were great about it. They gave us 3 months rent back, which basically allowed us to put the down payment on the next place. We moved to this spot, Rockwall, in Ridgewood. There was a literal rock wall in the lobby. A friend of mine, I think, broke his arm one night. We were recording like a Christmas punk song, and he had a couple too many beers and hit the rock wall. And yeah, it was great. So we were there from, I think, 2018 to 2020 in a room a little bit bigger. We had a live room and a control room, and that was when we started taking clients and started doing it a little bit more professionally. Opened the LLC, and it was really just like everybody had their own clients, and any clients that came through the studio, we just kind of, like, almost rock, paper, scissors, shoot who's going to engineer it. And we kind of quickly outgrew that place just because it was pretty tight. Like, our neighbors had, like, no treatment on their walls and, like, an 8-inch sub right on the adjoining wall, and it was nuts. I would be like, hey guys, like, I'm trying to record this string trio, and they'd be like, I'm sorry. They'd be like, nah, deal with it. Sorry. And so, yeah, we just had to move out of there. We got a great deal on a space in the Flatiron area now. It was kind of nuts. When we were in school, like, they had this listserv of studios that you could, like, work at and intern at. And one of them, like, was this studio, Flavor Lab. And then, like, the space that we ended up taking over in Manhattan, like, was this studio. So, like, by the time we got there, it was already pretty much, like, fully furnished. All the wires were run. Like, there were 2 vocal booths already fully set up and, like, good to go. Amazing. Really all we had to do for one of the rooms was bring in a desk and a computer, and we were rolling within, like, about a month in one room. The other room, we had to do a bit more. We knocked down a wall and, like, completely renovated it, got, like, soffit mounted speakers. We went through 2 different contractors because the first one, like, was a restaurant contractor and didn't really know how to build videos, and we learned that it wasn't so bad of a lesson. He only got about a quarter of the way through before we realized he didn't know what he was doing. I remember hitting up the like the project manager. I was like, "Hey, we haven't heard from John, the contractor, in a few days. Do you know where he is?" They were like, "Yeah, we found him like sleeping in his car on the side of the road. I don't think he's going to be coming back. So we're probably going to have to drop this job." And I was like, "Cool." And it was kind of a blessing in disguise because then we got like a proper studio contractor. So that was how we got to Manhattan. And we've been there from 2020 ever since. We've got 2 studio rooms and it's like a dream come true. One of the projects that I really loved working on, that just like really was such a defining moment for us, was our first feature that we did a year ago called and Through the Portal We Go. Shout out to Mike Hayhurst, Evening Squire, awesome guys, taking a chance on us and really made an awesome piece. It's this feature like black comedy, kind of Groundhog Day style, about this cult that tries to like transcend and go through this portal in the woods, and they keep messing up and like going and living the same day over and over and over again, and it gets tense, and then becomes a buddy comedy at the end. It's super cute. I loved it, and a lot of fun doing the sound design and everything. And that was kind of like my first foray into really doing like film dialogue editing, first foray into really doing like sound design for any kind of narrative piece like that. So that was a pretty defining moment for me. I think I redid everything like 3 times because I just wanted it to be perfect, and like was just having so much fun learning about the process and improving on it. And really appreciate Mike for bearing with me and like doing that together and like really just digging our teeth into that process. So that was a really awesome moment. Another one I think was the Life is Good commercial that we did. I think it was like their first ad campaign, like their first kind of, fully produced commercial campaign. And that was a ton of fun. There were like animated moments. I remember it was like a really fun creative puzzle because there were like different animated characters that then like at the end of the ad like zoomed up onto the shirts. Like those were all the characters from the shirts, and at the end they kind of like jumped onto the shirts. So finding all the sound identities for each of these characters. One of them was like Santa in a floaty, and it's like, what is the sound of like Santa topless in a floaty walking around? And apparently we found out it's a plastic fork smushing a meatball. So finding out like different little creative things like that, and like, these creative little puzzles have been a lot of fun. And that was another one of these milestones. I think like creative director, one of the like founding brothers of Life is Good came to the studio and like got in the booth and did some like Foley and like little ADR moments for some of the characters. It was hilarious. It was a really fun day. Project that's coming up that I'm really excited about is this web series I'm working on with one of the leading actresses from that first feature we did. She reached out to us through that, and she wrote and starred in this web series coming up. Just like a short thing, 6 episodes. It's just one of the most fun things I've ever gotten to work on, especially like Foley and sound design wise, because like they get into the fantasy moments, and I'm just like making like a really hot and heavy dragon and like all these crazy fantasy sounds. It's so funny. And then like for the family drama, it's very intense. They were comparing it to, can I make references? Can I like allude to other things? They like they kind of wanted it to sound like the holiday episode of The Bear, so like really kind of close and intense and like really like honed in. And I also was like, yeah, it feels kind of like Uncut Gems vibe as well, so like really doing a lot. And I don't know if you guys saw The Substance, like kind of like that also, like the dinner scene where it's just kind of like really up close and like a little hyper real. So I really got to do my thing with the Foley. It was a great time. I ended up getting a little day drunk, like, because there was a lot of like wine scenes, and you got to be realistic. So The people can tell if you're not sipping on that actual, screw top Sauvignon Blanc. They know. So I had to do it. I had to do it the right way, the real way. I feel like that intersection, the intersection of music and sound design, is really in like a lot of the tools that you're using and the liberties that you can take to kind of like extrapolate the sounds that you're kind of seeing on screen or not seeing. I think that's really a big part of it, is like the world that you build and the things that are not necessarily directly seen, but the things that are implied. And that's where you can really get very musical with it. Like if you're in a city, especially, you can really create and find a rhythm of the city depending on, the mood of the scene. We were working on a short for Kay's sister last year called Blisters. It's really awesome. And, it all takes place in one night, and it feels like the city kind of like at the beginning, it's so lively during the day. There's so much going on. It's really claustrophobic. It's really fast paced. So you get to add a lot of sounds and really kind of dictate this rhythm. And then, when it slows down, you get to just open the space up. It's very musical. And also the tools that you're using. What I really love about sound design and kind of getting into that after music is that you're using a lot of the same tools in a very different way. Like using synthesizers in a very different way, going for more like textural elements. Like the other day I was doing a spot for Kroger, and I just dragged a drumstick across the piano keys to create like, a little percussive sound. That's not how you play a piano. Not usually. But just like finding, that's a little bit of an extreme example, but just like different ways of using the same conventional tools to get really new and exciting sounds and like finding the right sound. They kind of like music and sound design almost feel like they're two sides of the same coin in a way. Like with music, it's so generative for the most part, unless you're scoring. And even then it's very generative. Like you really have to pull an idea out of thin air with music, like to create. You're really kind of creating in a vacuum, like in a void. And so with sound design, like you already kind of have the stimuli, you have the motion, you have the inertia moving, and you just need to kind of like find it and match it and kind of like create around it and build that momentum, or like kind of follow it. And with music, like you're very much creating that momentum. And also the rules are so different. Like with music, I feel like there's a pretty clear line where something like stops being musical, especially if you're, going with like a pop or a more like digestible or conventional format. There's a very fine line where something like falls outside of those bounds. And you can of course genre bend, but even then there's like very clear, like this works and this doesn't. This is in the right key. This is not in the right key. This is like in time. This is not in time. But the options that you have for creating something are limitless because it is so like generative from its most infantile stage, from its most like, bottom or beginning possible stage. Whereas sound design is very much kind of like building on top of a world that's there and like reinforcing and establishing a world that's already kind of being presented to you in a lot of ways. But the sounds that you have to draw from are limitless, and the combinations that you can make to achieve like the right sound are limitless. My favorite place to consume live anything, like live art, is Judson Memorial Church. I've been working there for the past 3 years, and they absolutely have some of the most incredible, eccentric programming that I have ever seen, that I've ever been a part of. Incredible mixed media, particularly focusing on dance and like, like really like postmodern and very avant-garde like mixed media performances, especially with like the Black Aesthetics series that just wrapped up. But I think it's coming back. Yeah, it's coming back next year. Really like phenomenal, like nothing I've ever seen. One of my like life goals is to have a spot big enough where I can have a few different pits and like a few different like surfaces, and the box of shoes and the box of tchotchkes, of course. I heard about like, I think Skywalker Ranch just like has a car in there so that they can do all their car sounds. They probably have a couple, because sometimes you got to have an SUV, and if you're Skywalker Ranch, you probably just have a bum SUV lying around. Man, you can find me at the studio for sure. I'm there 7 days a week. Corner Store Studio, cornerstorenyc.com. You can find us on Instagram, Corner Store Studios, I think, or Corner Store NYC. There's a pink donut. You can't miss it. You can find me on Instagram. It's my full government name, jacob.modiano.zacharia. Yeah, that's me. You'll find me. There's like 5 pretty mid pictures, so I'm not a bot.
AE1 short.
At Sometimes Somewhere is produced by Audio-Technica for AT1 Radio. It is recorded at AT1 Studio at Technica House, New York. Follow AT1 Radio and Audio-Technica USA on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening.